Okay, we'll discuss what we have done in the last class. That's a routine matter. So, what is HP? Anybody? You have to answer less questions. What is HP? Dheeraj, what is HP? Definition of HP? Anybody?
Horsepower.
Horsepower, correct. What is? How do you define it? What is 1 HP equal to?
746 watts.
Correct. 746 watt. Yes, correct. What is the definition?
It is a power that an engine is able to produce, sir. Needed, sir. Power needed.
That is not like that. It is the, suppose if the rate of work done is equivalent to, the rate of work done is equal to 75 kg meter per second, we say 1 HP of power is obtained. Okay. But how much, what is the power developed by a strong man? What is the HP produced by a strong man? Dikshita? Yes, you should, you are not alert like that's why you have to open your videos. Otherwise, huh? So we have studied last class just a four-stroke cycle engine. Can you explain what events takes place in the power stroke? You have studied four-stroke petrol engine last class. What events are taking place in the power stroke? Anybody? Is it why you should answer?
Yes, sir.
What events that you can observe in the power stroke? What is the position of the valves in the power stroke? What is the position of the valves? Inlet valve.
Sir, both
and
closed.
both are closed, correct? Next.
Sir, ignition, then combustion, and sir, then the that exhaust moves out, sir.
So that is, power stroke, combustion takes place. So at the end of compression stroke, the gas burns by the help of spark plug so that the power is obtained and the power is transferred to the crankshaft through the connecting rod. And the power is utilized for useful purposes at the end of crankshaft. So this is power stroke. Both the valves are closed. Both the valves are closed. The power is obtained by the combustion of the charge. What is the charge? What is the charge? The charge is?
Air and fuel.
Yes, air plus fuel, correct. The charge is air plus fuel. So what events taking place in the exhaust stroke? What events in the that are taking place in the exhaust stroke.
Sir, inlet valve remains closed.
Inlet valve remains closed, correct? Correct.
Exhaust valve opens.
Opens. The piston pushes the burnt gases outside the engine cylinder through the exhaust valve. The piston starts moving upwards, pushing the gases, burnt gases outside the engine cylinder through the exhaust valve. Okay. These are the events that are taking place in the exhaust stroke. What events taking place during suction stroke? Similarly, you can tell Hemant Kumar, what events that are taking place in the suction stroke?
Sir, inlet valve is open.
Inlet valve is open, correct? Next,
Piston move downwards. Sir.
piston move downwards. What happens? Piston move downwards, correct? What happens?
Sir,
Fuel and air are injected inside.
Yeah, fuel, that is sucking of the charge. That is fuel and air is taken inside the engine cylinder and the entire cylinder is filled with the charge. So these are the events that are taking place. And what events taking place in the compression stroke?
Sir, piston moves upwards.
Yes. The piston begins to move upwards. What is the position of the valves? What is the position of the?
Sir, both the valves are closed.
Oh, yeah. Both the valves are closed. Correct. What happens? The piston moves upwards. The piston moves upwards,
Yes, sir.
compressing the charge. The piston moves upwards, compressing the charge. So that what will happen?
Pressure is created. Sir.
Pressure and temperature of the charge gets increased. So at the end of the compression stroke, the charge is ignited by the spark plug. Spark plug. So power is obtained. So this is happens in the case of compression stroke. So you should be perfect about the principle of operation of the 4-stroke petrol engine. Now let us study about the IC engine parts. Today I want next we'll go to the 4-stroke diesel engine. Before that, you must know what are the parts of the IC engine. So I've sent the sketches showing the different parts of the IC engine parts. So first one is the cylinder liner. What is this liner? The liner is inserted in the cylinder block. The liner is inserted in the cylinder block. See, so that it provides the space for the combustion. It provides the space for the piston. Piston movement, the liner provides the space. in which the piston reciprocates. So, and also it compresses the charge. The piston reciprocates inside the cylinder. So this provides the spacing. There are two types of liners, dry liner and wet liner. So the dry liner is one which is having metal to metal contact, whereas the wet liner is having metal to water contact. That is the major difference between the dry liner and wet liner. Generally, the cylinder liner is made of cast steel. The cylinder liner is made of cast steel. Next, coming to cylinder block. Generally, you know that in a tractor, there are 4 cylinders. Generally, in a tractor engine, you see that there are 4 cylinder blocks are there. So why these multi-cylinder? We call this as a multi-cylinder engine. Why we need more cylinders? Anybody have the idea? Why we need more cylinders? Anybody? Why we need more cylinders? Yes,
Increase
For
the
more
power.
combustion, sir. For more
for more power.
combustion.
The idea of having more cylinder is to get more power. So that's why you see that tractors are getting more power. A tractor can produce, a small tractor can produce 18 HP, big tractor can produce 45 HP, 60 HP, and 80 HP. So depending on the power required, we are increasing the number of cylinders, and the engine is called the multi-cylinder engine. Okay. So the cylinder block is one in which the cylinders are erected. So cylinder block, it's a casting. It is like a casting, it is made of cast iron. The cylinder block is made of cast iron. So you can note down. Next, we'll come to the cylinder head. The cylinder head, so it is placed above the cylinder block. The cylinder head is placed above the cylinder block, and in between there is a gas-tight structure is placed. That is called, what we call that, there is a name, gaskets. We call that as the gasket that is placed in between the cylinder head and the cylinder block. So the cylinder head is one which provides the space for combustion. It also provides the space for fuel injector, then spark plugs, and also for the valves, So the cylinder head is made of what material? The cylinder head is made of cast iron. So you know that why we go for cast iron?
Sir, it is hard but brittle.
I agree. What is the melting temperature? Melting temperature is very high. Is it not? Next, valves. The fourth one. Are you seeing the figures that I have sent already? The valves. Yes or no? Answer. Are you seeing the
Yes, sir.
figures that are sent? Valves, you know that there are basically the two types of valves. One is the inlet valve and the other one is the outlet valve. Inlet valve is one which is used for sucking of the charge, sucking of the charge. Whereas the outlet valve is used for expelling the gases outside the engine cylinder. One minute. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಯಾರು ವಸಂತ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಹೆಸರು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಅದು ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಐಡಿ ಸೇಮ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ?
ಓ
ಇವ್ರು
ಹೌದಾ?
ಹಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಮೇಡಮ್
ಹಾ ಹೌದು.
ಅವರು ಅವ್ರ ಹೆಸರು ಹಾಕ್ಸಿರ್ತಾರೆ.
ಹೌದಾ?
ಯಾರ್ದಾದ್ರೂ ಬರ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿ, ಅದು
ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡು.
ಕಾಮನ್ ಐಡಿ.
ಹೌದಾ?
ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಬೇರೆ ಟೈಮಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಸಿಆರ್ ಕೇಳಿ
ಓ ಸರಿ ಸರಿ ಬಿಡಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇನಾ?
ಈಗ ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಐಡಿ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಲ್ಲ, ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀ 2B ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನಾನು.
ಓ ಸರಿ ಸರಿ ಅವ್ರು ವಸಂತ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾ
ಅದಾದ್ರೆ ತೊಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಓಕೆ okay, so the valves are made of cast steel. The valves, you know that the temperature they have to withstand very high temperature. Next is the fifth one is the connecting rod. Connecting rod is an important part of the AC engine. What is its function? I told you in the last class.
So piston, it connects with the crankshaft, sir, you told.
Yes, correct. It connects the piston and the crankshaft. So you can observe there are two ends are provided. One is the small end and the other one is the big end. At the small end, the small end is connected to the piston. The big end is connected to the crankshaft. So you know that the big end is connected to the crankshaft with the help of the bearings. Then the power is transferred from the crankshaft to the connecting rod to the crankshaft at the end. You see that generally the connecting rod is made of drop forged steel. The connecting rod is made of drop forged steel. Next, coming to the crankshaft. You see that the crankshaft, it is the structure is as shown in the figure, and you know that the end of the crankshaft, at the end of the crankshaft there should be a flywheel. Flywheel is one which stores energy during the power stroke and supplies during the idle strokes. The crankshaft, which is connected to the connecting rod, and it transmits the power generated by the IC engine to the other useful work. So at the end of the crankshaft, the flywheel is fitted generally. The crankshaft is made of drop forged steel. Next, coming to the seventh one, that is the piston. I think I might be knowing what is the function of the piston. Yes? What is the function of the piston?
Sir, compression of air.
Compression of the charge. The function of the piston is to compress the charge. You know that the piston is having two parts generally. The upper part is called as the crown and the lower part is called as the skirt. So you see that there are spaces for the compression rings. See there? The spaces for the compression rings, and you know that at the skirt there is a hole which I have not written in this one. That hole is meant for the piston pin. That hole is meant for the piston pin, and you see that there are the two types of rings. One is the compression ring, and the other is the oil rings. The compression rings are placed above the top of the crown, whereas the oil rings are placed at the bottom grooves of the piston. Generally, the piston is made of, earlier it is made of cast iron, nowadays it is replaced by aluminum alloy because it should be light in weight. It should be light in weight and it should be strong. Therefore, it is made of aluminum alloy. Next is the eighth part is the piston pin. The piston pin, which acts as a joint between the piston and what? Which acts as a hinge-like connection between the piston and, you tell me, piston and what? Other part. Connecting rod. Piston and connecting rod. It is made of cast steel. It is also called as wrist pin and gudgeon pin. It is also called as wrist pin or gudgeon pin. So it is acts as a which connects the piston and the connecting rod. Next is the compression rings, where they are also called as piston rings. So the piston rings are of, there are two types. One is the compression ring, the other one is the oil ring. You can see the sketches. What is the difference that you observe by seeing the oil ring is having the holes on the surface of it. Why that holes are provided? Because it controls, it lubricates the parts, the oil rings which lubricates the parts connected to it. Whereas the function of the compression ring, number one, to form the gas tight chamber. Number two, it extracts the heat from the piston. It extracts the heat from the piston. And you see that there is a gap provided in the cylinder that is compressor. Why that gap is provided? We know that when metals get heated up, what will happen? Metal gets heated up, they expand. I think you have studied in heat transfer. This is because of the linear coefficient of expansion. So when the metal gets heated up, it expands so that if there is no gap is provided, what will happen? It will bulge. It will bulge and the shape will be changed. Therefore, in order to avoid this, they provide a small clearance, 2 to 3 mm clearance for the piston rings. So, function of the compression, I already explained, these rings are made of cast steel. Next, coming to the second page, you can see that the next part is the flywheel. Flywheel, it is a wheel, say, which is made of cast iron. Generally, the wheel is somewhat bigger. And you know that the functions of the flywheel, number one, it stores energy during power stroke and supplies the same during idle strokes. What are the idle strokes? What are the idle strokes? The strokes other than power stroke are called as idle strokes. Harsha, yes? Harsha, yes. 72. Can you hear me? Yes?
Harsha, yes.
That shows you are not attentive. Huh? Anybody? What are idle strokes?
Rather than power stroke.
The strokes other than power strokes, they are called as idle strokes. So second function of the flywheel, it's used as a starting aid. It is used to start the IC engine. The third function is it balances the IC engine. The third function is to it balances the AC engine, and the fourth function, it is used as a start power transmitting unit. It is used as a, so there are four functions of the flywheel. So these are the four functions of the flywheel. Flywheel is made of cast iron. Flywheel is made of cast iron. Next is the camshaft. What is this camshaft? So the camshaft is one which is important in opening the valves of the IC engine. It operates the valves of the IC engine. What are the valves?
Inlet and outlet, sir.
Yes, inlet and outlet valves. How these valves operate? Because on the shaft there are projections. These projections are called as cams, and hence the shaft itself is called as camshaft. While the shaft is rotating, it operates the valves of the IC engine. The camshaft, and you know that the camshaft and crankshaft are operated by what is called timing gears. Timing gears, that is, that I will explain. How this is designed, that the speed of the crankshaft is twice the speed of the camshaft. That's why the gears are called as timing gears. The camshaft is made of cast steel. The camshaft is made of cast steel. Next is the crankcase. The crankcase, it is like a vessel-like structure. It is always present at the bottom of the engine. The crankcase is also called as the oil pan. Why? Because the oil, the lubricating oil is present in the crankcase. Why we need a lubricant in the IC engine? What is a lubricant?
It avoids frictions or rubbing or wearing and tearing of machines, sir.
Yes, it avoids friction. So to avoid friction, we are applying this lubricant. Lubricant which reduces wear and tear of the moving and sliding parts. Moving as well as sliding parts. So we are using what is called the lubricant. So the crankcase is the house of the lubricant. It also houses the various parts like oil pump, then the timing gears and other parts. The crankcase is also made of cast iron. The crankcase is also made of cast iron. Next is the timing gears that I have already explained. What are these timing gears? They are gears fitted such that one gear is fitted to the camshaft, the other gear is fitted to the crankshaft, so that the speed of the camshaft is half the speed of the crankshaft. Suppose if the speed of the crankshaft is 200, what is the speed of the camshaft? Yes, the speed of the crankshaft is 200. What is the speed of the camshaft? It should be half, that's all. The speed of the camshaft should be 100. So it is designed in such a way that the speed of the camshaft is half of the speed of the crankshaft in an IC engine. So generally we use spur gears or helical gears for this purpose. There are, what's a gear? What is a gear? Gear is a power transmitting unit which is made of cast iron. Which is made of cast iron. You know that the gears provide exact velocity ratio. Suppose why we are using these gears? Suppose if you want high velocity ratio, suppose 1 is to, that is 10 is to 1 is to 10. Suppose in such cases we are using the bevel gears. Bevel gears are used for getting high velocity ratios. And also the other type of gear to get high velocity ratio is the worm gear. Worm gear is also used to get high velocity ratio. So this is about the gear. The gears are made of cast iron. Next, coming to the spark plug. What is the function of the spark plug? Yes, what is the role of spark plug in uh, petrol engine? Huh? What happen? What it will do?
Net charge.
Huh? The spark plug ignites the charge. the spark plug ignites the charge so that the combustion of the charge takes place. The combustion of the charge takes place. So how this is, it is made of electrode, and you see there is a small gap provided in the spark plug. At that point, the combustion of the charge takes place. And you know that, and the other part is fuel injector. What is the role of fuel injector? Where it is used? The fuel injector is used in diesel engine. So the function of the fuel injector is to inject the fuel into the combustion chamber so that the ignition takes place. So you know that in a diesel engine, the charge is only air. The charge is only air. So it has compressed to such an extent that due to high compression, the air is at the end of the compression stroke, fuel is injected at a very high pressure, which is injected at a very high pressure so that the combustion of the charge takes place and the power is released. Okay. It is also called as the atomizer. The other name of the fuel injector is known as the atomizer. Atomizer. Generally, you see, if there are three cylinders are there in an IC engine, there should be three fuel injectors. Depending on the number of cylinders, these injectors are also designed depending on the number of cylinders. I think this completes the IC engine parts. Okay, I hope you understood. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can answer. What is the role of oil rings? What is the role of oil rings?
Sir, it lubricates the parts, sir.
Yes, engine parts, correct. What are the functions of the flywheel? Flywheel. Anybody?
Sir, it stores
The power
energy.
transmit,
It
power transmit,
power
power transmission, sir. Starting the IC engine, sir. Balancing it.
balancing it, starting the IC engine. Next,
Stores energy during power stroke, sir.
it stores energy during power stroke and supplies the same during
Right.
idle strokes. What material is made of? What material?
Cast iron, sir.
Cast iron, correct. What is crankcase? Where it is located? Crankcase. Hmm?
Sir, it is a vessel-like structure present below the engine, sir.
Correct. It is a vessel-like structure.
Present below the engine.
Yes, correct. It's also called as
House of lubricant.
oil pan. That means it provides the space for the lubricating oil. What material is made of? What material? Crankcase. Huh?
Cast iron, sir.
Iron. So I'll give the assignment to write the neat sketches of the IC engine parts. Write the neat sketches of the IC engine parts and also write the functions of the IC engine parts. So you'll ask afterwards. So give time. 1 week time is there. You can write and submit next week. So CR, Mr. Patil, can you hear me? And who is this your CR? You please send the attendance screenshot to my WhatsApp number. So you'll end up the meeting today. I hope you understood what are the IC engine parts.
Yes, sir.
Okay.